He was one of the most idealistic and determined men ever to reach the presidency, filled with positive ideas about what he wanted to accomplish. Personally disciplined, hard-working, and totally honest, he was a breath of fresh air in Washington. But he underestimated the political task that lay before him.
Mr. Carter came into office determined to tackle as many problems as he could as fast as he could. And in a lot of respects, fell on his face as a consequence. Too many things, too hastily decided in too much isolation, put before Congress and the country in rapid profusion. If you want to do things in the presidency, if you want to advance disarmament, if you want to altogether alter our energy policy, if you want to bring a national health care system into being, and so forth, and he wanted all those things, and many others. If you want those things, you have to develop coalitions, not only in Congress, but of the interests outside of Congress, and of public opinion to bear on Congress. And that is your essential business. There's no escaping it.
But Jimmy Carter was not interested in the traditional political process. His passionate do-it-yourself approach to new legislation often failed to gain congressional support. Eventually, he did manage to push through a series of major energy bills, but over time, his political independence confused just about everyone.
There were a lot of articles written, permeated by consternation about how do you put this President Carter in a box? How do you define him? Is he liberal? Is he conservative? Is he a warrior? Is he a peacemaker? Is he too idealistic? Is he too pragmatic? But I never did try to create that confusion. My comprehension of myself was fairly complete, I guess. I never lost an hour of sleep while I was president, worrying about what had happened or what might happen and so forth. I did the best I could. And with my self-confidence and my religious faith, I accommodated disappointments and really enjoyed being president. I think the best time was probably dealing with the Middle East issue. I made a very difficult decision over the almost unanimous opposition of my cabinet and my staff to take the initiative and to go to Egypt and to go to Israel to try to get Begin and Sadat to agree on a peace treaty. And when they did sign, both of them signed the agreement, I guess that was probably my best moment.
He put enormous effort and intensity, sense of purpose, decisiveness, concern, even subtlety into bringing the Egyptians and the Israelis together. It was a brilliant piece of personal work. Let me put it this way. It showed him as the best Secretary of State we've ever had as president. But that attention to detail, that careful pursuit of it, left all kinds of other things unattended to at the time, including the deteriorating regime in Iran, and for that, he was to pay a terrible price.
There was a time of great stress for me. That's while the hostages were being held, when I was obsessed with preserving their lives and bringing them back home safely. I would meet personally with the families of the hostages and try to reassure them of my interest. So that was a very bad time.
That was your worst moment.
Oh, yes, it was.
Jimmy Carter's presidency was undone by the hostage crisis in Iran, by an oil crisis, and by soaring inflation. But perhaps more than anything else, It was undone by his own independent-mindedness and his unwillingness to engage in party politics.
Well, I have to admit, not very proudly, that I didn't ever put party loyalty at a very high level in my list of priorities. As a matter of fact, I had more more political trouble with the liberal Democrats than I did with the Republicans. Even when I got the nomination, renomination in 1980, it was after a bitter battle with Ted Kennedy and his supporters, and he almost refused even to shake hands with me on the platform of the Democratic Party. And we never did heal those wounds within the party. Because I think in many ways, I'm not trying to brag, but maybe this come across, I didn't really put re-election as a high priority. I've talked to a number of former presidents. All of us agree that there should be one 6-year term.
Really?
Yes.
I
think if you check with the others, you'll find there's a consensus there.
Yes. Did the presidency change you?
I don't think so. I don't think it changed me much. And it's hard for me to answer that, but the people who know me best, my wife and my close associates, don't think it did.
You leave the White House. You lose. You once said, show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser. A tough time.
It was a very difficult time, and it would have been more difficult for me if it hadn't been even more difficult for Rosalind. And the fact that I went back to Plains, where my family and Rosalind's family have been for 150 years, and where our farm was, and our church was, and our friends were, was a haven within which I was able to heal my disappointment very quickly.
In retirement, Carter, like Rutherford B. Hayes, became an active humanitarian, working on charitable ventures and helping to resolve international conflicts. His basic decency had survived his years as president, and he became widely admired across America and around the world.
I went to the White House with my own ideas about what ought to be done, and I never did fit in really with the Washington environment much. But I think that I did have an independent set of mind.